The huge drop in your reward system is going to cause you to become extremely moody, irritable, and possibly violent. When I went through puberty, it was such a dramatic change. I went through puberty around the time I was 12, and I remember thinking to myself, why am I so upset? Why am I in such a bad mood, and why do I want to just rip someone's throat out the first chance I get? Because I noticed the majority of my peers are very upbeat and happy. Yeah, I wasn't. A lot of things would bother me. And that's because of the lack of reward system I had. All my dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and the other neurotransmitters that are known to be low with people with this condition, all those dropped. I felt it. I felt it heavily. You look at any inattentive type and see how they feel when they go through puberty. It's intense. It's tough. They feel horrible. And they feel very irritable. Granted, neurotypicals and other people, they feel harsh as well during the change. It's not an easy change, and being a teenager is a very dramatic time, but for someone who's an inattentive type, it is not an easy transition. And if you're an inattentive type, you know what I'm talking about. Especially you guys out there with this subtype. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Number 2, if you do not eat or sleep properly, you will be in an extremely bad mood. To this day, if I don't sleep at least a nice 7 or 6 hours, preferably 8, I'm not going to be in a good mood. But thankfully now, I've realized that I'm deficient in vitamin B12, and I've started taking that, and I've noticed that I can get less hours of sleep, and I'll be okay. Did I have any idea of this back in middle school? No, I didn't have a clue. So basically, back then, if I got anything less than 8 hours of sleep, I was going to be in a bad mood. And God forbid I didn't eat, then my fight or flight, survival, attack, annihilate any threat, and just eat. That mindset, if you look at my hunter and gatherer video, was the mindset I had until I ate. So it wasn't, and sometimes I wouldn't eat until lunch. So thankfully, as I got later into high school, around my junior year, I started eating earlier, and what a difference it made in my mood. Had I known, I would have eaten a lot earlier. I never had breakfast. Eventually, in my sophomore year, I started having a multivitamin, a drink form of multivitamin, and it made a huge difference in me. But in my earlier years, particularly middle school, no, I really didn't have anything, and it was very, very tough. Number 3, continuation of problems from elementary school, bad grades, and others giving you a hard time because of how different you are. Guess what? The legend continues. Does it stop in middle school? No, it only gets worse. You know why? Because new ways of, new loudmouths, new people going through puberty and thinking they're hot stuff, trying to give you a hard time. And I gotta say for myself, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 5'11", 240 pounds. So I was very tall. I was around the same height I am now. As soon as I went through puberty, people thought I was sometimes visiting the school, because I went to a middle school and high school combination, and then I went to a different high school afterwards, but I digress. Anyway, so to this middle school and high school combination, some people thought I was back visiting after having been graduated. I was like, no, I'm only in 8th grade. I just looked older. But anyway, though, not everyone has the fortunate blessing of being a bigger person, and because of me being a bigger and intense looking individual, no one ever gave me a hard time in middle school. I gave people a hard time. You know why? Because I hadn't eaten right, I hadn't slept, so I was really irritable and really intense almost all the time. I had really long black hair, and I used to dress almost in all black. I was into really aggressive music. I was into punk. I was into metal, and just any music that would just match my intensity. And that music, to an extent, is very tribal. particularly metal, very tribal, and that really connected with me. And I played in a bunch of bands while I was in middle school and high school. And just seeing that cathartic release in a mosh pit, just seeing people slam dancing and going nuts, it was just releasing that rage and that intensity. It was therapeutic to go through that. 4. Relationship-wise, it will be even more dramatic than neurotypical teenagers. Because of your lack of reward system, your lows will be very low and your ups will be very, very up. If you end up with a neurotypical, odds are they will not be able to take your quirks and you will feel devastated. Or if you end up with a hyperactive or a combined type, you will bore them. Guess what? You're going to act really odd, like I mentioned earlier. And if you're a guy and you get yourself a neurotypical, yeah, you're going to, they're going to feel weird being seen with you to an extent. And then you flip the gender across. If you're a girl who's an inattentive type, and yeah, the guy's going to be like, why is my, girlfriend so odd or whatever kind of, mix up in the relationship in terms of who's with who. The point is, whichever one of you is a neurotypical, yeah, you're going to kind of see the odd quirks of the inattentive type. And, unfortunately, for the most part, you're not, neurotypicals are not going to want to be with you.
I did my best, but I guess my best wasn't good enough. 'Cause here we are back where we were before. Seems nothing ever changes. We're back to being strangers, wondering if we ought to stay or head on out the door.
It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of other people I know. A huge frequency. I'm not saying it occurs every time, but there's a huge chance it's going to happen. And they're going to want to go with another neurotypical. Or, unfortunately, they're going to want to go with a hyperactive type or a combined type, because those people are quote-unquote the life of the party, even though their lives are a wreck. Number 5. You will constantly be let down by the fact that you have few, if any, people that relate to you. This is something I remember quite vividly. I remember being young, being a teenager, especially thinking to myself, when am I going to come across someone who is similar to me, someone who has the same intensity, rage, point of view on life? And I remember never coming across that almost. Because the majority of the people that would come speak at my school and interact with people, these are people who would be, in higher levels of authority or, guest that the school would have. I could relate with almost nothing these people had to say. When in the world am I going to come across someone who's like me? And it never happened. You know why? Because none of those people had the condition I did. Just like to you, if you were searching for someone and you didn't know you had this condition, yeah, you weren't going to find anyone like yourself. So I relate to that. Just like you probably relate to that. You might have little filter for how you talk with people, thinking that people will be like you and be able to talk about things that are meh to you but intense to others. Huge part of my life. People who are inattentive type, we have thick skin. We're able to joke around morbidly about things that other people like neurotypicals and yes, hyperactive types and combined types to an extent would find too intense or would be like, that's horrible. Why would you say that? You know why? Because their empathy is higher. You know why their empathy is higher? Because they have a higher level of dopamine, a higher level of serotonin. I've noticed that those two neurotransmitters have a lot to do with that. particularly serotonin. You lack that, you're going to lack a lot of empathy. And you're going to basically have a much more rough outlook on people. And you're not going to feel bad joking about certain things that other people consider too taboo. So anyway, because of that, I would joke around with my other inattentive friends, and we had a very intense sense of humor. We still do. So if you joke like that, though, around other people, they're going to be appalled. They might be saddened, or, you know. And then I noticed, too, that we can take jokes about each other, and those jokes can be very intense. But God forbid back then we said that to somebody who was a neurotypical. Those people, they couldn't hang. Like, I feel like saying they're a bunch of pansies, you know, which is what I would say before, but it's just that they have a higher reward system. So they're basically just a bit more sensitive and kind of expect us to, you know, be a lot more understanding, which in our minds we didn't see any differently. So it's just literally different neurotransmitters making you perceive different events differently. Drug and alcohol abuse are a risk. Number 7. Indeed they are. You know why they are? Because if you have to compete against a bunch of neurotypical straight A schmucks in a system that's based off being competitive and whatnot, well, guess what? Everyone is ahead of the race. And you know what? If you have what I have, you're inattentive, or if you're combined or hyperactive, guess what? The neurotypicals, they got a head start by a mile. And here we are trying to trace along and trying to keep up with them in a system that's not made for us, but it's specifically molded for them. Well, after getting so many bad grades, after doing so bad on so many exams, what do you think is something easy to help you cope with? Booze, drugs, whatever it is. It's going to help you cope better with the disappointing ailment that is your academic life, and then the hassle your parents put on you and that teachers put on you. You have to have some escape out of the monotony. So unfortunately, a lot of teenagers with the condition turn to drugs because they're undiagnosed, and it's unfortunate that occurs, but that's what happens. It doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to a good amount of people. 8, teenage pregnancy might be a risk, although the paranoia might win. Now, here's when it comes to something else. A little different from the hyperactive types, from combined types. We don't, when I say we, I mean inattentive types. We're very precautious people. We already feel like crap. We don't want to do anything else that'll make us feel more like crap. So if we get someone knocked up, or if you're a girl and you get knocked up, yeah, it's going to bring a whole mess along with it. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. So I would argue that the combined types, and especially the hyperactive types, would win in this case, because they're not anywhere near as precautious as the inattentive types. Number 9, risk of being overweight. Now, why is there a risk of being overweight? Oh, guess what? Eating boosts up your reward system. It boosts up dopamine, boosts up serotonin. You feel really good eating. Why do you think people go into, oh my god, I got into a food coma? Why do you think people say stupid stuff like that? It's because their reward system has gone up and they've gotten lazy. That's why people engorge themselves. Now, me personally, I hate going to a bunch of different restaurants and trying new stuff. The reason I do is because I know what I like, and I eat because I have to eat, otherwise I'll die. I don't eat because, hey, I just enjoy. No. That's different. See, that's where I am different from the majority of people. That I eat because I have to eat. And no, I don't want to go try some, a different dish, because if I don't like it, then I've just wasted, my time and money eating that dish. But some people might say, oh, but you can return it though. Yeah, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather eat something I know I'll like. And if I do want to try something new, then I'll ask a friend or whoever I'm with if I can have a little bite off whatever dish they got. And if I like it, then we'll do it next time. But for me to take a risk and get a whole new plate just for me, and not knowing whether I'm going to like it or not, no. Number 10, taking a really long time to complete assignments and being the last one to finish exams. Guess what? World champion right here. I have been the last one to leave a million of my classes when it comes to the exams and finals. And if I'm not the last one to leave, if I see there's 2 other people there, I will wait until they leave because I want to be the last one. That's what happens when you're the last one so many times to leave an exam. Now before, I would tell myself, oh, I feel like crap. I must be the moron of the class because everyone else is leaving. But no, now I take it as a badge of honor. And you know what? I do good on those exams. It's just that unfortunately, because of the phrasing of the question that the instructor gives me, I might not know what he or she is asking for. And I'm going to need extra time to sit there and try to figure out what the hell they're asking. Because then if I go ask them what they mean, sometimes they won't answer my question, which really pisses me off. But anyway, so when an instructor does one of those trick questions, trying to be cute and fancy, for people with a condition, we see and perceive questions and things 5 or 7 or whatever more different ways. So when some teacher gives us a trick question, we're going to perceive it really different. And here we are trying to decide, okay, well, I don't know what exactly they're trying to ask, but I'm going to try my best. And guess what? It's already been 30 minutes you spending on that one question. You got 60 more to go. And then the exam's almost going to be done. So you need to hyper focus and get the exam done. And everyone starts leaving. You want to know the best part too? When you hear those desks moving and then the backpacks, you hear that zipper going. That crap can drive people with the condition insane because it's clutter, it's noise, it's distraction. Yeah, it could be that, or it could also be some person coughing or whatever, someone tapping their pencil. Yeah, we hear that. We hear all of that, and it's really irritating. And it makes us take a longer time finishing the exam. Number 11, not knowing how to cut corners when reading and studying, and attempting to read the whole book assignment only to take an eternity and not finishing the homework for other classes. When we have to do our homework and when we have to read, that's going to take a really long time. Now some people say, just cut corners, just read the stuff that you need to read. We don't know what we just need to read, especially for those asinine instructors that make us read multiple things and then ask us only one or no questions on the other things that we have read. Those are really the ones that really piss me off. But anyway, reading for people with the condition takes a really long time. First off, we're not stimulated by it. It's boring. We get lost. We have to reread. A new character comes into the story, and then all of a sudden we're like 20 pages in. We're like, wait a minute, who is this person? And then we have to backtrack and go back maybe 8 pages just to realize who Frank or whoever the crap is that popped up in the story. And then when we try to cut corners and only read certain parts of a chapter of a book, depending on the class, we skip out on other stuff that the instructor basically asks questions on. And then we're screwed and we get upset. So we feel the need to have to read the entire chapter just to make sure, which takes an eternity. And then guess what? We have 6 other classes we have to read for. And then boom, it's 11 something. We have to go to bed. And guess what? We don't want to go to bed because it's boring to just go to sleep. We haven't had any time for ourselves. And then when we do try to go to sleep and it's past 12, we can't just knock out because we have an issue with slow onset sleep. Number 12, not wanting to go out much and preferring to be by oneself. Being in a world and surrounded by neurotypicals and other And people, even hyperactive types, and to me hyperactive types were annoying as hell growing up. They still are. They're a bunch of flakes. But anyway, I'm trying to help you guys out as well, so I try to be a little nicer. Anyway, though, it's true, though. Hyperactive types are some of the biggest flakes you're ever going to meet. You know why? Because if your plans with them, if it's not stimulating to them, if their reward system doesn't go up, guess what? They're going to flake on you. They're going to go do whatever other thing is more stimulating, regardless of whatever it is. I have a joke with my hyperactive and combined type friends, especially my hyperactive friends, that I tell them, you guys would flake on your own funeral. You would flake and go do something else that was more fun instead of just being in the coffin there. And they find that humorous because, for the most part, they know it's true. Whatever's more stimulating, regardless of whatever it is, they're gonna do it. They're gonna flake on you. I've been flaked on 1,000 times by hyperactive types. Number 13, not getting excited or happy for what a majority of people do. Story of my life. I notice people get excited about the most trivial and stupid things out there. I couldn't give a rat's, yet again, about some of the things people get excited about. Oh my God, there's a new flavor of ice cream we're going to go try at this place. I remember being young. I don't care. It's like a stupid freaking flavor of ice cream. I always wondered to myself, how is that going to bring any meaning into your life? But then it wasn't until I was older and realized that, hey, I have a condition and my reward system is low, which is why I don't get excited about things just like other people do.